Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men Volume 2, Issue 65, cover dated June 1997. The cover is by Carlos Pacheco, inked by Art Thibert, and coloured by Christian Lichtner, aka Liquid. And it is a dynamic cover featuring, well, it looks like Bastion, doesn't it? But it turns out to be duplicates of Bastion, or they're revealed to be a new iteration of the Sentinels. All produced or manufactured in his image. And yeah, we have a cover caption too. It's open season, Children of the Atom, Hunted. And this really is the first significant chapter in the crossover event among the X titles, Operation Zero Tolerance. So let's open this one up to a very surprising splash page. And here we go. This one features Heroes Reborn Iron Man. What's going on here? Only moments ago, Jean Grey was among friends speeding toward the safety of home aboard an airplane. Now, however, she's been transported someplace else. And this someplace else is somehow or other the Heroes Reborn universe, because this iteration of Iron Man, this particular armor, is that designed by Whilce Portacio. So Jean is confused here. Scott Storm, is everyone okay? And Iron Man responds, I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm fine. Thanks for asking. You, on the other hand, look terrible, which is how I'd guess someone would look after breaking into Stark. And he was about to say International. And she's shocked here in the foreground. And he replies, okay, you're skipping ahead a bit, but yes, I'm Iron Man. And you are. She's Phoenix. Never mind this. Let's continue with this intriguing opening here. She lashes out with her telekinetic power, insisting that Iron Man is dead, knocks him back there, and he thinks to himself, according to my suit's onboard computer, she's hitting me with pure telekinetic energy. In the absence of an external power supply, that would indicate she's generating it naturally. Is that possible? So there are no mutants in the Heroes Reborn universe. Jean here insisting, I was there when Iron Man and a host of other heroes sacrificed their lives to save humanity. Now you're going to tell me what's going on here? I have to get ugly. And he says, I don't believe either is a possibility. Why don't I take you out with a repulsor blast until I can get to the bottom of this? And then at this point, unexpectedly, she starts feeling herself being pulled back. But from where? And then she's gone. And Iron Man is left to ponder. As Tony Stark, I created the most powerful body armor on the planet. I'm certainly not about to let one mysterious redhead confound me. Get a hold of Dr. Richards, he calls to Pepper Potts. Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four, tell him it's important. Anything else? Yes. See what you can dig up on something called the X-Men. So this is intriguing. What's coming out around this month is issue 8 of Fantastic Four. So moving into the last 6 months of Heroes Reborn. And it's as if Marvel Editorial is getting ready for the return of those characters to the Marvel Universe and tying it in with the X comics here. So then we proceed with the story proper. It's Earth. And we have this newly married couple hiking in the Colorado mountains. And so we get a nice couple of panels here establishing all of that for us by Carlos Pacheco. I like the choice to have the fir trees here in the foreground in silhouette, so that it kind of focuses our eye on the waterfall and the river there. That's nicely done. And of course, these two are shocked by this jet flying overhead being attacked by this other aircraft. And what does the person aboard the aircraft say? By the authority of Operation Zero Tolerance, you are ordered to land. And here we are. We're into First Blood of Operation Zero Tolerance, the prologue. And the creative team over here is Scott Lobdell, writer. So he is adding the dialogue himself to this. No Ben Rabe doing that for him. Carlos Pacheco, penciler. Art Thibert, inker. Richard Starkings and Comicraft on the digital letters. Christian Lichtner, Aaron Luzon, and Liquid Color on the digital colors. And there we go. So the couple here, baffled and befuddled, The husband there says, I can tell you this, it's something bad. I'm assuming you mean, she says. Let's turn the page, get past the advertisements for the people on that jet. So, it's the X-Men. They're returning from Southeast Asia and they are under attack. So, of course, they're going to try what they can to hold the jet plane together and see what they can do about their attackers. But something that I find a little bit irritating is how once again all the characters are talking about what their powers are. So, for example, here Jean asks Storm about the cabin. Storm responds, has been compromised. I'm summoning my control over the wind to compensate for the decompression. All she should say, knowing Jean for so many years, is, I am compensating for the decompression. And then Jean responds here, and it's already been established for any new readers that she's got telekinesis as a power. I may be able to keep us aloft with my telekinesis, she says for a few minutes. Why not, having established for any putative new readers that she has telekinetic powers in the opening 3 pages, simply have her say, I may be able to keep us aloft for a few minutes, and leave it at that. We're going to get more of this kind of exposition shoehorned into characters' dialogue and thoughts here with Cannonball. Nice anchor image of him getting into the action. And here we go. In my head, I realize that I'm protected by my kinetic blasting field. Heck, I reckon after taking on Gladiator, I'm practically downright invulnerable, but this feels different. Whoever set us up has done their homework real good. So let's see what happens next. Well, there's a scene switch to Canton, Ohio, and there's a group of people here in a diner, and one of them is looking for the sports to be turned on, but there's an interruption to the broadcast for a CBNC special report. So Roger Crenn there sitting in for Trish Tilby, because of course Trish Tilby is away in space with the Beast for events over in Uncanny X-Men. And so the reporter here says, what you're seeing are images being broadcast live via satellite. So somehow somebody is taking images of the attack on the jet plane with the X-Men and Cannonball attacking the craft, the hostile craft. And the television presenter has Henry Peter Gyrick, of course, in the TV studio to talk about what's happening over Colorado. And Gyrick here says, at 1900 hours Eastern Standard Time, 3 high-security assault ships were on field maneuvers somewhere in the Colorado mountains when the pilots were allegedly attacked by 5 members of the Outlaws, known collectively as the X-Men. Now, what I don't understand is why there's a little footnote here, not quite. I mean, we just saw that. We saw it. So, like, this really is for dullards who don't understand that Gyrick is speaking with a forked tongue here on the television. In any case, let's continue and see what else he has to say. What these mutants may or may not have known is that they were engaging operatives of Operation Zero Tolerance, a task force composed of representatives from several countries determined to contain the mutant menace once and for all. And we see here in the background that live satellite feed of Cannonball being attacked. The news presenter says, excuse me, Mr. Gyrick, but as impossible as it sounds, are you saying the United States government has granted permission for a paramilitary organization to operate on American soil and to open fire on our citizens? So that's a fairly sharp question from the TV presenter. I like this anchor image here of Gyrick sitting on the swivel chair. The kind of body language there, his leg resting on his knee as well, the drapery on the suit, Carlos Pacheco doing a good job. And look at the little Easter egg detail of the fact that he's wearing an Avengers tie as well, maybe to subtly communicate to viewers how the X-Men are responsible for the deaths, quote unquote, of the Avengers like Captain America and Iron Man. What I'm saying, sir, is remember Onslaught, see? An estimated 34 US citizens slaughtered by mutants, Captain America, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four among them. Consider the legacy virus, a disease spread from mutant to mutant. I'm saying the assassination of Graydon Creed, a pro-human rights activist brutally murdered on the eve of his election. This sequence of events, combined with the threat of the mere presence of mutants poses, has given credence and momentum to those within world governments who seek to strike back at this unseen enemy. Whether we like it or not, it seems Operation Zero Tolerance has begun. So the guys in the diner are delighted. Well, here's to them. Finally, those freaky mutants are going to get what's coming to them. God bless America, says one of them. So this is all rather on the nose in terms of the political subtext here regarding kind of like American nationalists, and kind of painting them, shall we say, as somewhat bigoted. And of course that resonates in an interesting way in 2025. The same rhetorical discourse is going on. So it's kind of prescient, this kind of thing, from the perspective of 2025. But, it's all on the nose stuff. There's no nuance here, really. But this is an interesting little piece here with the older Japanese couple in the diner. Susan and Richard Okada don't join in this impromptu celebration because they've seen this side of America once before, when they, in all things Japanese, were the unseen enemy, shuffled off to relocation centres for the greater good. They believed afterwards that it could never happen again. Even now, they want to believe that more so than ever, as the guys in the background are crushing their beer cans in celebration for Operation Zero Tolerance. So, okay, there's something interesting going on here in Lobdell's script, but as I said, it's kind of pantomimey. There isn't a hell of a lot of nuance in it, and I feel that Claremont did it better when he was exploring this kind of thing. He wasn't so obvious in terms of his handling of the theme of prejudice. He mixed it up a little bit, especially when you think of the chief engineer of Genosha, Philip Moreau. That was a more interesting, nuanced way of handling things, I feel, compared to this. But in any case, let's continue with the story. Colorado, Cannonball being chased by these 3 sentinels. He recognizes them as sentinels. But he's thinking to himself, if they are sentinels, they ain't like any I've ever seen. The narrative exposition, all of this stuff here, if you're a regular reader, this is all superfluous. You already know all of this. And it just doesn't read, the prose doesn't read in an interesting way, the way that Claremont used to do it. Claremont used to reiterate in an interesting way things that regular readers would know. This, no. So Cyclops here, he's trying to pilot the plane as best he can. Then the scene shifts to 1407 Grey Malkin Lane. Of course, that's the address for the X-Mansion. The lights are on in there, and the police are outside. So what is going on? Let's continue with the story. But we go back here to Colorado and the dogfight in the air. And let's see here. The kid is good, One Eye, says Wolverine, but he doesn't see what's happening. Those sentinels are just cornering him so that the ship can take him out. Not if I have anything to say about it, Wolverine. So Cyclops there starts using his optic blasts and thinks to himself in a rather absurd fashion, and thanks to my optic blasts, I do have something to say about it. Anyway, what's happening in Salem Center? These police here are wondering about what's going on because they have no probable cause to be knocking on the door of Xavier's house. No warrants, no nothing. His colleague says to him, we got our orders, Stan. We hold the place until the feds arrive. And the guy says, feds always love a mystery. And then we're seeing up here what's going on in Colorado. Scott has fallen out of the cockpit after the jet has been blasted. So how come is it that Storm doesn't basically grab Wolverine and Cyclops and fly them outside, and Jean use her telekinesis to fly out, levitate out? That's what I'd be doing in that situation. But in any case, the plot demands something else, and so these 2 new Bastion manufactured sentinels of Operation Zero Tolerance grab Cyclops, and he's obviously unconscious there. And then in Westchester, the feds do arrive. "Stand down, gentlemen," says someone. "Your assistance is no longer required." So let's see what all this is about. But the scene shifts to the emergency room of our Mother of Mercy Hospital in the Bronx. So we've got all these staff, nurses, doctors standing around watching the live satellite feed from Colorado. And one of them says, and this is a bit interesting, "Man, I can see why they're all hot to take out the X-Men, but now they're messing with his sister," because you can see Storm there on the television. And here's the really interesting bit. The guy says, "I ever tell you, I met her once in Harlem, how she turned my whole life around?" And his colleague says, "Not recently, Carter, but don't let the way she looks fool you. Underneath it, she's still a mutant." So what's this a reference to? It's a reference to deep Uncanny X-Men continuity, issue 122 by Claremont and Byrne. So that's unexpected. Very, very interesting. And to see how the guy that Storm intervened into his life turned it around and made something of himself. And so he's kind of on the fence about the whole mutant question. He's there kind of hesitatingly saying to his colleague, "Yeah, I guess still." And then someone else asks, "What about you, Dr. Ray?" So now a new character. "Where do you weigh in all of this, Cecilia?" There she is in the background taking off her mask. I think a mutie is a mutie is a mutie, she says. It's time someone stopped talking about the problem and finally did something about it. Now that's interesting. That's an interesting introduction to a new character in the series, and presenting herself as someone who thinks that the mutant problem requires an aggressive response, and we'll see how ironic and dissembling that is in future issues. Outside of the Xavier Institute, the Sentinels there are jamming the security system of the mansion. Let's see. Back in Colorado. So we're switching back and forth over the course of the issue in terms of what's going on in Colorado. And as it turns out, the capture of the X-Men. So what happens with Storm here? She is caught in some sort of expanding polymer. And of course, we get in the narrative caption something about her claustrophobia. She's trapped. So that's going to be traumatic for her. And the Sentinels there are going after her. Meanwhile, in Salem Center. Okay, so an interesting layout where at the bottom of the page we get these horizontal panels that are set in Westchester. And then we're getting these somewhat diagonal laid out panels in Colorado, which communicates the discombobulation of the dogfight in the air. And here we've got Wolverine. So now he's on the stick, as they say, trying to steer the jet. And Jean is using her telekinesis to slow down its descent. And Wolverine's going to use the trees also to slow their fall. So this is a moment of high drama here. Wolverine is pulling Jean out of the plane. So they're going to ditch it. Excuse me. Alert. Prime unit, the perimeter is clear back in Westchester. So there is this armored car pulling up. Inform them the prime unit has arrived. I like the digital coloring here of the what you call it, like the headlight shining there on the plaque for the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning. That's nicely done. Let's continue with this. This is interesting as well, just as a marker of the times. You've got Chris Bachalo, still on Generation X, welcoming aboard a new writer, James Robinson. So Lobdell had been spread very thin among the different titles he was writing between Generation X, Uncanny X-Men, and after Fabian Nicieza and Mark Waid's departures, Adjectiveless X-Men 2. So a new writer coming on board, James Robinson. This is after his runs on Starman, of course, which made his name, and also on Jim Lee's Wildcats. So here he is coming over to Marvel to write Generation X. And even as I say this, I like this image here. It's very quirky, typical of Pacheco. But I have zero memory, even though I have these issues and I must have read them once, I have zero memory of James Robinson's run on Generation X. So, who is it that's getting out of the armoured car, except, of course, Bastion? And we see there is a holographic projection of what is going on in Colorado, in the air over Colorado, by the light of the holographic images, which so brilliantly display the X-Men's final flight from justice. I cannot help but savour the blessed irony of it all, he thinks to himself smugly. How much more sweet would be the fruit of retribution on behalf of humanity if these mutants understood that in a very real way I owe my creation, my very existence to them and their kind. So we still don't have the backstory, the full backstory on Bastion. We're just getting hints there about it. But just look at and think about the diction and phrasing of his thoughts in the thought balloons. Always villains have this very flowery purple prose that they either speak in or think in, and Bastion's no different from that. He's cut from the same cloth as so many Silver Age type villains, even though he's supposed to be a villain for the 90s. And then we get just superfluous commentary there on Bastion, again for the putative new reader. This is an interesting layout here where we've got him in the center. He's the mastermind behind the capture of the X-Men. So we see Storm there being taken into the zero tolerance craft, Cannonball being picked up from the ground. It's unclear how he could have been knocked out, given he's invulnerable when he's blasting. That wasn't properly communicated in the storytelling to this point. Cyclops here, he's been taken prisoner, and of course they have this mask over his head so as to knock out his ability to use his optic blasts. And it looks like Jean and Logan here are buried beneath some rubble, or the remains of the jet they were aboard, and there's a little spark of telekinesis there from Jean's index finger, so there's some hope there. And as the Sentinel units touch down, they say to Bastion, mutant designates Phoenix and Wolverine conditioned to be determined. And Bastion here with that big smile on his face, to that my brothers and sisters I say amen. So brothers and sisters, siblings, are what is their exact relation to Bastion? Again, a mystery that we don't know the answer to just yet. And then we're back to the TV channel, and Henry Peter Gyrick here responding to the news presenter's position. I can't help thinking that I'm looking at the beginning of a very dark time for the American people. Gyrick responds, or perhaps, Mr. Kren, what we are seeing is a people, a race, working together to take destiny in their own hands. So again, a little bit on the nose there, the political subtext. In the Long Island home of the Drake family, we have Iceman, who was recently reconciled to his father when his father stuck up for mutants. In the TV audience again of a Graydon Creed interview when Graydon Creed was running for president before his assassination, obviously, and Creed's men had Iceman's father beaten up, but he survived it. And so now Iceman, seeing the news report, recognizes that he's going to have to help out the X-Men. So off he goes. There's a big hug there between father and son, and Iceman is on his way to the rescue. I like that top-down shot, that interesting perspective on the family home there. And then Salem Center once again. And so we've got the police there in silhouette, and we've got the sentinels there, these Bastion-type sentinels, zero-tolerance sentinels. And Bastion can't help but gloat to Xavier about what he's achieved so far and what he's about to do. So he projects a holographic version of himself down to Xavier, who's imprisoned in the New Mexico desert in a repurposed Hulkbuster base. And he addresses Xavier and asks him, do you recognize this door? So of course, Xavier does, my God, the school. Interesting upshot there, 3/4 profile upshot on Xavier's face. Interesting work by Pacheco. But it was impossible for you to extract the codes from my mind. You said so yourself. How did you? So Bastion reveals here, I used an alternative Xavier, someone whose normal psionic defenses were not as mature as yours, because Bastion has, of course, the knowledge that Xavier is a telepath, or was. Now be silent, Xavier, or you'll miss the best part. And who was it that he got the codes from? C Generation X 25 to 28. He took Jubilee prisoner, and somehow or other he got the information he needed from her mind. And here he is in the war room. Now this is really interesting. So Pacheco doing his research here in order to draw and visualize the war room. I mean, one of the places that you get a good look at the war room is Uncanny X-Men 273, as drawn by Wills Portacio, the double page spread, pages 2 and 3 of that issue. And in particular, this kind of platform here, I'm pretty sure that Pacheco was looking at that, and he's doing it from a different angle, which is really nicely done. And of course, Adjectiveless X-Men, or this particular volume of X-Men Volume 2, issue number 1, the double page spread by Jim Lee, where you've got Cyclops on one side and Storm on the other, and you've got Forge sitting in one of these chairs, and I'm trying to remember, I think maybe Banshee in the other one, and they're looking up at the big screen as the various units of the X-Men attack the mansion, and they're trying to tag Professor X. So yeah, Pacheco studying that and doing a good job here with a very interesting angle. So Bastion, back to the story. Unless I miss my guess, this is your war room, is it not? From here you sat and planned your confrontations with all those that stood in the way of your goal. Don't get me wrong, Xavier. I fully understand that your intentions were noble. Now that's interesting. History is very kind to you in that way. That also is interesting. Is Bastion from the future? Is that why he's using this strange phrasing here? History is very kind to you in that way. Is he from the future? But the fact remains, you failed. And that failure will ultimately cost every one of us unless changes are made now. Changes the weight of which came to rest upon my shoulders the moment I became a man. So what was he before he became a man? A machine that gained sentience? What is going on here? This is intriguing for the reader, and I don't think it is what shall I say? I don't think it is to spoil anything, because I can't remember that I'm thinking of Nimrod here in relation to Bastion. I've thought about Nimrod before. I genuinely don't remember what is revealed to be Bastion's origin, so I'm thinking about this as I'm reading through it, that he's from the future, that he could be Nimrod. The sentinel type that was sent after Rachel Summers from her dystopian future. Is there a connection? In any case, he continues here and he says, understand me then when I say I take no joy in this. Computer, this is Charles Francis Xavier, acknowledge. So he's blowing the dust off his fingertips there. I like that little detail. Xavier here panicking as Bastion calls up all files for the Danger Room schematics, all files for the Xavier protocols, all files for the Mutant Underground. And Xavier says those files will do you no good, Bastion. They're all encrypted. They mean nothing to you. And it looks like they're encrypted in the Shi'ar language. But the computer opens up the Xavier protocols, Mutant Underground, Danger Room schematics files. Bastion responds, he says, naturally, Xavier, I would have expected nothing less, but we'll break that encryption code one file at a time. I can do that because I have all the time in the world, because he's a time traveler. 2 pages of letters there. Really the only interesting thing is the upcoming Psylocke and Archangel Crimson Dawn limited series that's been plugged. Next month, the man who would be Magneto. And here we are, last page. I wanted you to see this, Charles. I like the decision to have full horizontal panels, like widescreen. and Bastion continues, but more than that, I wanted you to understand your goal, your crusade, your sacred dream. It's over. So Xavier left there, sitting in the darkness, the illumination over his head. Next, everything changes. So yet another event across the X-Books, Operation Zero Tolerance. The X-Men, the ones on Earth anyway, being taken prisoner, but Iceman is on the way to the rescue. Who else is going to step in and step up? Well, the other X-Men team, led by Rogue and Beast, is out in space. And this is interesting. So it turns out there was an original splash page which was jettisoned after the idea to have Jean pulled into the Heroes Reborn universe. So the editor here, Mark Powers, is saying, we thought you, our frantic readers, would get a kick out of seeing the original page 1 to this story reproduced from Carlos Pacheco's pencils. So definitely I was interested in this in 1997. Anytime I ever saw a scan of an artist's penciled work, just to see how they were doing it, really intrigued me. This looks like a good page. No wonder they wanted to show it to readers. Would have been a pity just to leave it in storage. The page we intended to use until Messrs. Lobdell and Pacheco went nutty and decided to add a sequence featuring old Shellhead, the Invincible Iron Man, as if you didn't know. So enjoy and remember, you never know what will happen at Mighty Marvel, so stick around. But I doubt that it was Lobdell who wanted to bring in Iron Man. I'd say it was an editorial directive, and I would say it had to do with the decision not to renew the agreement with Lee and Liefeld for a second year of Heroes Reborn. So as I was saying at the beginning, this is Marvel editorial kind of preparing the way for the return of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four to the regular Marvel universe. There you go. There's some advertisement here for the upcoming gimmick flashback month and flashback issues. This art here of Stan Lee is by Chris Pachalo. The background art here by Adam Kubert. And here's a list of all the different titles that had May -1 flashback titles and some specials there as well. And I do have some of those, and it'll be interesting to see the X-Men ones that I go through in the near future. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men Volume 2, issue number 65. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. In particular, I'm interested if you bought this back in 1997 and I don't know, maybe you were 10 or 11 or 12 years old and this was the best thing ever. But reading it as an adult now, a lot of it just doesn't have the same appeal that rereading old Chris Claremont issues does, because I feel that Claremont was really excellent at double coding his X-Men comics, where they were inviting to younger readers but also had levels of meaning, subtext between the lines, between the panels, that was interesting to an adult reader and remains interesting to an adult reader returning to those. But this is kid stuff. This is for 10, 11, 12-year-olds. That's what I feel now revisiting it. Really nice art by Carlos Pacheco. One or two interesting moments, like the callback to Uncanny X-Men 122 for sure. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.